How you doing, YouTube? Matt Nassa Beer Reviews back with a little bit of collab bonkersness, courtesy of my boy Remy, Beer Geek Holland. That be Põhjala and Struise, as good as it gets. Yeah, listen, this box of beer arrived here in the United States from my boy Remy over in the Netherlands about 6-7 hours ago. I just did an unboxing of this probably about 2 hours ago. And I did my unboxing, did a couple beer reviews, sat down, fiddled on the internet. All I can think about is this beer. All I can think about is this beer. I'm like, yeah, you'll get to it. An hour later, I'm like, I'm fucking reviewing it. I don't give a fuck. It's been in the fridge. It's probably perfect temp, probably right around like 55 degrees, give or take. It says serve 14 to 18 C. I don't know what that means because I'm not in metric land. And yeah, I just have to review it. It is a 17.5%. Say what, son? 17.5% Imperial Stout. It is double barrel aged in Pedro Jimenez sherry barrels and Heaven Hill bourbon casks. Yeah, it just looks absolutely bonkers, and I'm drinking it. That's all that's happening right now. So you might not get the best review in the history of mankind because I'm just fixated on loving this beer more than anything else in the history of mankind. But I'm going to drink it. I'm going to post it. I'll post it tonight, too. We'll get it right up. So there you go. Yeah, I expect this to be motor oil in fucking color. So we'll see what's what. Okay. It's dark, but it's not the darkest beer in the history of mankind. Let's get the whole thing in there. Give it a rough pour. Yeah, do what we want to do. Let's not pussyfoot around. Label-wise, it's really cool. I like it. Nondescript white there. You have your Põhjala and Struise branding on there. Did I say the Struise? I don't even know if I actually named the breweries when I actually started this video. Just cascades over into this kind of like darkness. As good as it gets. I don't know if that's being a little bit kind of like cocky, but you know, if anybody's going to be cocky about that kind of stuff, I think, you know, the Struise, I know it's Struise, but I always want to call it the Struise, can say that. And Pohjala's no slouch either. So you have a little bit of Netherlands, you have a little bit of Estonia up in this piece, and that looks like a big burly stout. I mean, it doesn't look like some crazy motor oil, over the top, bonkers level kind of imperial stout, but looks quite nice. It is fatty snifter glass. Yeah, it's gonna nose. It's big. It's gigantic. I mean, you're talking about 17.5%. Oddly enough, it's kind of like in Struise's wheelhouse because they do a lot of that kind of a beer distillate to where they get those kind of stouts, not kind of distilled beer up into your kind of almost 50% alcohol range. So it's not something they're unfamiliar with. But there's this richness and darkness. It's beer. And that's the one thing I don't think I can understate here, is that a lot of times when you get up into these kind of, you know, almost 20% level beers, especially when you have a big, huge, hefty barreling going on. You're talking about double barreling here, you know, those Heaven Hill barrels coming to play, sherry barrels kind of diving in there. You expect it to be this big, boozy monstrosity. I'm not going to sit here and say this beer isn't boozy, but for how boozy it is and for how gigantic it is, it's still beer. You get this rich chocolate malt leaning heavily into that baker's chocolate, but bringing some sweet components with it. A nice big roasted component that isn't coffee by any stretch of imagination. It's roasted malt. It's letting you know that it's roasted malt. I mean, there's these levels of chocolate that don't get overly sweet, but you still get tinges of this kind of milk chocolate vibe, and I think you're getting a bit of that from the barrel too, because when you start mixing those kind of Heaven Hill bourbon and you start talk about sherry casks, you're gonna get a little bit of a decent amount of vanilla kind of thrown in there, a little bit of coconut. I'm not getting coconut on the nose, but those are the things you typically get. You're definitely getting vanilla here to where it's kind of melding and mixing and taking those big roasty, toasty baker's chocolate level vibes and adding that confectionery portion that makes you think of milk chocolate. Getting the bourbon, it's not overly fruity nothing too cherry-like. More of a bit of a hot kind of base kind of whiskey. The sherry actually comes through. You're getting a little bit of a more of a tart kind of port whining kind of vibe from it. But since that beer is so big and since the bourbon is so big, it doesn't let you get too far in that wine direction. It's more of a kind of added component. It's like both of those spirits are kind of conjoined as opposed to being kind of individual barrels. Yeah, it's big. It's bold. I gotta dive in. Cheers. That's the most dangerous beer ever. It's so fucking dangerous. I'm scared. I'm a little bit scared right now. That drink's nothing like 17.5%. It's not even close. I mean, you get this heat on the nose, and you get this little pop of heat in the back end. But it's not 17. It's 10. And that gap is so crazy to have that gap, like to bring those 10% heat vibes. I'm not talking about the impact of the beer. The beer itself is violent. It's sweet. It's big. The port comes through beautifully. It's probably my favorite part of the beer. That, you know, those bourbon casks, those whiskey casks come through nice. It's more of a kind of barrel char, kind of like bittering component to it, even though that's a sweet thing too. The beer is still there. But it's just, well, it's electric and it is aggressive. It is not drink even close to 17.5%. Is there a date on this? I don't see one. Yeah, this is creepy status. This is danger status. I mean, you know you're drinking a big beer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, it's like drinking a session porter or something like that. You know you're drinking a gigantic beer from the way the beer presents itself, both from its heft of alcohol to its sweetness. You're pretty sure you're drinking something big, but you're not getting those telltale signs of something that's overtly high in ABV. I mean, you know, that heat is just not there. There's a little prick of it, but nothing too crazy. I mean, the spirit is reserved, but meaningful. The beer is still there. And you're not going to sit there and make a 10% beer and then barrel age it and have it become 17%. It's a big beer to begin with. So to have the beer be that reserved, be that gentle, not be overly aggressive, but at the same time super electric, is a really fun testament. I mean, listen, you know, Struise is king shit of fuck mountain when it comes to a lot of beers, mostly stouts, but you know, a lot of their Belgian-based stuff and Belgian-influenced stuff, and a lot of other beers are absolutely fantastic. Põhjala 1000% knows their way around stouts, at least from my exposure. I haven't had much from them outside of the stout game. You can taste that kind of combination, both breweries in this, and that's usually a thing you don't see that much with the collaboration. Usually it's more leaning one brewery or the other, but you have this kind of roasty, toasty, kind of old world kind of bittering thing that is, you know, Struise to a T, you know, Black Albert, things like that, but then you have this rich, new school, kind of slightly confectionery thing that Põhjala does so well, and they bring both of their barrel aging game to the table, while, you know, you can't deny that Struise is bringing that ultra high ABV game, and their expertise in there. It just ends up becoming a violent, but comforting at the same time. It's such an oxymoron of a beer. Stout. I mean, you know, you're sitting here expecting to kind of talk about this you know, confectionery pastry kind of huge stout. I mean, it's a monster of a stout that's been barrel aged in 2 different barrels. It's put in a bottle and you drink it. It's not. There's not a ton of moving parts here. Outside of the 2 barrels, you're talking about a core 4 beer, and for it to express what you're getting here, I haven't even talked about the flavor. I just talked about how much I love the beer. That's the best part about this beer. Talk about the multi-layers of chocolate that you get from the stout. Talk about the multi-layers of vanilla, marshmallow, coconut, all those things you're getting from a barrel. Talk about the multiple layers of rich. I don't even want to go vinousness on that port kind of vibe and getting that sherry vibe. It's more fermented. I was gonna be like fermented grapes, but then you're talking about vinousness, but it's different. It's a distillate whiskey version of grape. You know, it's that portion of the show that comes there. The bittering, the way the bittering isn't the star of the show, but the way it shows up both in hops, both in malt, and both in barrel, just to add enough balance to make this beer not get overly cloying. It's a fantastic beer. And it drinks like it's 10%, 11%, even 12%. Fine. Nowhere near 17.5. Absolutely fantastic beer. From 2 breweries that are absolutely fantastic. There you go. That's it. I have nothing else for you. It's good. Done and done. Let's talk about it. It's one of the better barrel-aged stouts I've had as of late. Yes. Mount Rushmore status. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Delicious. And I expected that. And so a lot of people would be like, okay, your preconceived notion. You're going into this going, okay, you think this is going to be great. That's why it is great. I view it the complete opposite. I expected this to be great. So I had very high kind of standards for this beer. I shouldn't really do that as a person that talks about beer. I should go into everything as neutral as possible. But, you know, you're talking about 2 breweries that really know what the fuck they're doing. I expected to be great, and they exceeded those expectations. I think that's a harder test, to be perfectly honest with you. Value and availability, no idea. Remy or anybody else, I don't know if this makes the States. I know Põhjala gets here. I know Struise gets here. I don't know if this collab gets here. Remy, anybody out there globally, let me know what's what as far as price point and availability on this, and leave you with if you like what we like this. If you like barrel-aged stout. I mean, that's it. If you're a fan of Struise, you're a fan of Põhjala, it's the best of both of those worlds mashed into a beer that is just hair on fire at the same time. Laid back and relaxed, man. Does not suck. So there you go. Another review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. You know what you should do? You go check out Remy's page. Beer Geek Holland. Yeah, he's the one who sent it to me. Thank you very much, brother. Can't thank you enough for doing this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of collab goodness right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.